which means purity in terms of mind is simply for the sake of purity in terms of view. Dear friends, today, 3rd of October, we have gathered here for our weekly mindfulness session. We have practiced 2 hours of mindful walking and mindful sitting. And the next few hours we have allocated as usual to listen to a talk and for a discussion. So for this discussion, as you're all aware, we have selected the discourse called Relation, and we have discussed a few important points in the discourse, mainly the qualities of a noble friend, leader of noble friends, is the beginning of the discourse. It is just a question that the Blessed One is asking from the monks when the monks came to worship the Blessed One. He's asking whether there is someone in the area where the Blessed One was born, who is an unentangled and who has aroused persistence, who is virtuous, who is concentrated, who has the discernment, who has the release, and who has the knowledge and vision of the release. And not only he has those things, and he encourages others by talking about them, he advises others, and he sets an example for the others. And then the monks very gladly say, yes, there is one whose name is Punna, and he is also called the son of Mantani. So therefore his name is usually known in the discourse, Punna Mantani Putta. So Venerable Sariputta hears this, and he is delighted to hear it, and he then wanted to inform this particular monk, Venerable Punna, so that it will be beneficial for everybody. So time passed, and there was a time when Venerable Sariputta hears that Venerable Punnamantaniputta is around, and then he runs and goes behind him. And when the time is right, they start the discussion. So when the discussion was started, Venerable Sariputta asked Venerable Punnamantaniputta, why are you living this holy life? Or under whom are you living this holy life? Then it says, under the Blessed One. And then he's asking why. Is it for the purification of virtue? And is it for the purification of the mind? Is it for the purification of view? Is it for the purification of or overcoming the perplexity? Or is it the purity in terms of knowledge and vision of what is the path and what is not the path? Or is it for the knowledge and vision of the way? Or is it for the knowledge and vision? Then for all these questions, Venerable Punnamantaniputta very quietly says, no, my friend, no, my friend, no, my friend, for all of them. Then Venerable Sariputta is asking, if not for those things, why are you living this holy life? Then he says, it is for the sake of total unbinding to the lack of clinging. In other words, to eradicate the clinging and then come out of the bondage that we have, that we are entangled in this cycle of birth and death. Then he once again, with that answer, he is bringing the previous questions once again, whether purity in virtue is total unbinding, and whether the purity in terms of mind, total unbinding, whether the purity in terms of view, total unbinding. Like that, he goes on and asks whether knowledge and vision, total unbinding through lack of clinging, or something else. Then again, the answer from Venerable Punnamantaniputta is, sorry, no. None of these can be taken in isolation as total unbinding. And if you try to take anything else outside these seven questions you ask, then it is only the lay people who are not practicing. So it is all your questions don't relate to total unbinding. And then he takes the steering wheel into his hand. He says, it's wrong because in all these stages, there is some sort of clinging involved. Therefore, the Blessed One does not declare them as the final goal. But all these, without these things also, we can't come to total unbinding. And each one is complementary to the other and helps the other. So it's a path, it's a way that you will be able to reach the final goal. And then he gives an example of the relay chariot, where the king goes from one city to the other and using 7 carts and goes from first one to the second, and then second to the third, and so on. And he says, like that, purity in terms of virtue is for the sake of purity in terms of mind. And purity in terms of the mind is simply for the sake of purity in terms of view. And so on and so forth. He finally says purity in terms of knowledge and vision is simply for the sake of total unbinding through lack of clinging. So when you take these pairs, what you can see is if you look at them from the not from the forward angle, but from the backward or from the reverse angle, when you see that your mind is getting purified, that is a confirmation that you are virtuous. And when you feel that your view is getting purified, that's a confirmation that your mind is perfect. And when you see that your perplexity is getting gradually overcome, that is a certification that your view is purified. So therefore, it's one leads to the other. And when you see that the second one is not really working well for you, and when you really see that you have issues with, say, for example, the mind, or taking your attention to the object, then that simply is the certificate of the virtue. So we have discussed these things, and the today topic, before coming on to the today's topic, if we just take a quick look at what we discussed in the past in relation to the pairs. First one, purity in terms of the virtue is simply for the sake of purity in terms of mind. So we discussed what virtue means, which is the restrainment of our physical and verbal activities. And in that restrainment does not mean that you try to be 100% virtuous in all respects. And virtue is necessary for us to get the support to the practice. So therefore, purity in virtue means that it's just a support only, and it should not be a hindrance. In other words, one will not try to be 100% moralist, but it confirms the purity, confirmation of purity in virtue is intensifying thoughts. So in other words, when you have more and more and more hindrances appearing in your mind, that gives an indication that you are physically restrained, that you are verbally restrained. Then only the layers underneath are manifesting. Then only the layers underneath are coming to the surface. So if you see more lustful thoughts, more arrogant and hatred thoughts, or if you have a lot of sloth and torpor, and If you have a lot of thoughts about future and past, or if you are worried, what should I do next in my practice, or if you are worried, what happened in the practice in the past, and all that, which means now the mind is active. Mind is active because you are maintaining a good balance in your physical and verbal activity. So therefore, it opens the way. It is the gateway, confirmation of purification of the virtue is opening the gateway. So when we see the thoughts are active in this manner, so that's the indication that you are virtuous. So when you are virtuous and the mind is active, then you have got to go to the next one, which is the purity of the mind. So when you go to the purity of the mind, what happens is you can see the purity of mind when the view is not really purified. So in purity of mind, what happens is now you will have to deal with not the physical or verbal activities or vibrations. You will have to deal with the mental vibration. So when you deal with mental vibrations, there are few ways that you will handle it. One is if you can, when is manifestation of mental activities intensifying, if you are able to maintain your attention to either the walking or the sitting object, and the thoughts are not arising, obsessional defilements are at bay, then it's one way that you will be able to see the purity of mind. So when you have your attention to the object, maybe walking, maybe sitting, then these things, the hindrances, will not come into the surface. But there will have a time, since we practice mindfulness, and you cannot do it all the time. And there will have a time when the attention to the object gradually fades away, or you lose the attention, or there will have disturbance to the attention, say, for example, from a sound or from a vision while walking. So when that happens, you are, again, your mind will get disturbed. So this is where the mindfulness comes into the picture. When that disturbance takes place, if you are, again, if your mind gets shattered, then purity in the mind has not happened as required by the Blessed One. So for that purpose, what we will do is, although your attention is not with the object, now we will take the awareness of here, now, I am, and then you will take your attention to the object that is prevailing in that particular point in time. It may be a sound, it may be a thought, or it may be vision, or it may be pain, anything. Your attention may go to whatever that is prominent in that particular point in time. So with that, even if the main object is not there, but you have some sort of hindrance that is appearing, you start becoming mindful of the hindrance. When you start becoming mindful of the hindrance, what happens is the same thing that happened to the main object, which is gradual subsiding or gradual fading away of the main object when you were paying attention, will happen to the hindrances as well, or to the disturbance as well. So then when that happens, the real purification of the mind starts. And before Buddha, purification of mind happened always with the main object only. But after Buddha, because of the mindfulness, the purification happens either with the main object or with any other object that comes in the particular point in time when you are practicing. So in that manner, you gradually enters the realm of mindfulness, enters into the practice of the Buddha, teaching of the Buddha. And when that happens, your way of thinking, your attitude, your view is seriously challenged. How it is challenged is because our mind is always trying to get lured or get attracted just to one thing because of our craving. So mind wants to have mindfulness is taking anything. Just give me a second. Sorry. So because of that disturbance or the challenge to your attitude, to the way of thinking, or challenge to the craving, challenge to the clinging to the object, your mind again gets upset. And this upset happens not because you have disturbance, but this happens because you are now attacking the craving itself. You don't crave for one thing, you try to become mindful of many things. So purity in virtue, therefore, in itself is a purity in view, because when you have craving, you try to be 100% virtuous. But so far as Buddha is concerned, he says there is not necessary to be 100% virtuous. But if you can simply take your attention to the object, and if your mind is getting concentrated, then you are virtuous. That itself is a change in the way you think, and that itself is a challenge to the craving that you had for 100% for being 100% virtuous. And that similarly, purity in mind itself is a purity in view, because now you don't take the purity in mind just with one object, but now you can have the concentration with any object. So that is also a step forward so far as the way of thinking of the practice is concerned. So this maturity in the purity of view is given in the discourse on grade 40, and that says if you are aware that you have a wrong view, wrong resolve, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, and accepting them as they are, and that very knowing that you have these wrong things in itself is a purity of view. It is not necessary that you will have to make it right view, right resolve, right speech, and right action, but very knowing that you are wrong in itself is a great purification of the view, the way you think, the attitude. So up to that point, we discussed last time. So I'm just going to go a bit more further, or rather, not a bit more further. We discussed last time why this was really necessary during Buddha's time, because most of the practitioners who joined monkhood came from the sectarian teachers that were there during that time, such as Purna Kassapa, Makkali Gosala, Ajita Kesa Kambali, Nigantanatha Putta, Bakuda Kachayana, Sanjay Vellatikutta, and we discussed what they were doing or what their main teaching were in the last session, I suppose. So this is why this purity of view was very important, because even if their mind is purified, when the mindfulness was introduced, their strong view that they had from the previous practices, from the previous teachers, from their habit, they come and disturb them. So therefore, Blessed One took the next, or Blessed One showed the next thing that we have to do is, even if someone accepts mindfulness, they will have plenty of time that their mind is rejecting mindfulness because of their old wrong view. So this is exactly what happened during Buddha's time. There were a lot of people who had gone into a lot of blissful states, such as jhanic state. And in those jhanic states, they were obsessed with the absorptions, and they did not simply want to change it. But once it is changed, and it's a hell of a mess in their head. So that is because of the wrong view that they had. That is because of the craving that they have had to the achievements they have made. So therefore, what happens in the purification of view is that gradually they change into purification of, you can see whether the purification of view has actually happened when the perplexity is disappearing. So if we take that topic today, which is our main topic for the discussion, purification, view purification really starts when you reverse the view. So when I say reverse the view, is actually the how a view gets established in one's mind is a process, and that process galvanizes the particular way of thinking. So Buddha says in the discourses that especially in connected discourses, there is one section that was separated for views, and in there the Blessed One is showing that you will have some sort of a perception at the very beginning, and when you have the perception, you keep pondering about it, you keep thinking about it, you keep making more and more concept about it, and then starts snowballing. And once it starts snowballing, it becomes your way of thinking, right? So it's now not just a perception, it becomes your thinking. And then you keep on doing that for a long time. And then you tell your son, you tell your wife, and you tell your friends, and few people start accepting it. Then it becomes galvanized. It becomes very strongly cemented in the minds of those who start accepting. And that is how different types of beliefs are there in the society, even today. And those things haven't happened just overnight. And those things are not just people have just come out when they wake up from the bed. These things have happened over a long, long time. There is a discourse called the all-embracing net of views, right? So in Pali, we call it Brahmajala Sutta. So in Brahmajala Sutta, the word Brahma means, I don't know to what extent this all-embracing net of views make some justification to the name of the sutta. Brahma means a very fine realm of being, right? So we have the netherworld, and then the animal kingdom, then the human beings, and then the gods, and then Brahmas, and above Brahmas, those who have attained, and that is also Brahma world. So Brahma means sort of living beings who have very fine existence, and their main existence is very fine form and very fine mental process, or very sharp mental process, but very subtle form, or it may sometimes be no form as well, but very strong mental processes. So that happens when you practice. When you practice, you will go into unbelievable stages of your practice, and all of them have been itemized in this sutta called Brahmajala Sutta. So in other words, it is the net of not just views, it is the net of Brahmas. And we have something called internet. In internet, we are connected wherever we are in different parts of the world. In the same way, when we practice, we may get caught up in that net of Brahmas, and they have built up certain set of views. And in those views, and by practicing, when we get caught up in those jhanic experiences, in those abnormal psychic powers, and we think that it is the truth, and we think that it is eternal, and we think that it is me, and they come to those ideas, they come to those understanding, not just because sleeping and eating and drinking, but because of sheer dedicated practice. So when such view gets developed, it is very hard to change it. So it initially starts with a perception, and they keep thinking about it, and then it becomes galvanized. So like that, there are 62 such instances that the Blessed One has very, very vividly explained in the discourse called Brahmajala Sutta. So if you're interested, you can read that. It's a very long one. It is the first discourse in Tripitaka. And with that, Blessed One says, all these are views, right? And now it is the job of the Blessed One to break them. When we are practicing, we have come from such layers. This is not the first time we start practicing. We may have practiced in our existence in our previous lives. So we may have been in Brahma world and all that, Brahma realms and all that. And we may have those sentiments still left in our mental processes. They come up when your mind gets purified. When your view gets purified. When the view gets purified, because of these views, certain doubt starts arising. Although it gets purified, it will not 100% go away. Doubt will start coming up. Now, how the Blessed One challenged this was, he is simply diluting this view, and when the view is establishing, it is going from perception to the mind or the thinking, and then from thinking to view. And now Blessed One is breaking the view, he's diluting the view by simply letting you observe the object. He is showing that your view is getting changed. When you start practicing, you take your attention to the main object, maybe your breath, maybe you're walking, What happens is when you keep on observing it, keep on observing it, keep on observing it, without your knowledge, without your involvement, it by itself, the very same breath goes to a very subtle layer. You aren't able to see it. You aren't able to perceive it. So initially when you started, and you start with the view that there is breath and I can see that and all sorts of thoughts and ideas. But over time, you yourself start seeing that it is not so, it changes, that it is that you don't have a control over it. And in that manner, you start uh, mm, witnessing the dilution of your own view, that you can change, you can hold on to things, you can change things, you can manage things. No, when you don't react, when you simply observe, they gradually fade away. So in that manner, Blessed One, from the view, is bringing it to the mind state, and from the mind state is simply showing that what happens to the perception. So if you take some few examples to see what happens and how these doubts arise when you practice. When some people are practicing, they think if you really practice mindfulness, always your attention should be with the main object. And that is the attitude of many people. But when the main object either changes, or when the main object is being disturbed by something else, then they start doubting, am I doing it the right way, or is he teaching in the right way, or is this the one Blessed One taught actually? And they start asking questions, and there is nothing wrong. And this is how our view, deeper layer of our mind, is getting purified in the form of doubts. So if you ask a question, why it is happening, that is because your view is getting purified. When the view is getting purified, only the doubts arise. Otherwise, if you hold on to your own view, then there is no doubt. So in the same way, I remember when I was doing some programs as a layperson in Rockhampton, there was someone who mentioned to me that there was some monk, Mahayana monk, who has told them, you keep observing your breath until it becomes very subtle. Once it becomes subtle, make it gross again and keep on doing that. So see the type of wrong advices you get. Whereas the Blessed One says, these things gradually fade away. And that is what is exactly mentioned in the Four Foundations discourse. When you observe, you initially see the long breath in and out. And then you may see short breath in and out. And then it will come to a point that you will not perceive it at all. Blessed One himself says in the discourse. But the teachers who have the wrong view about it is teaching other people. And then when they observe, they themselves see that it becomes subtle. And because of the view that is given by the teacher, doubt arises. And that doubt is good, because that gives an opportunity for someone else who is actually practicing mindfulness to show these things. Therefore, arising doubt is not bad in itself, because it gives an opportunity for him to confirm that his view is getting purified. And another example that I can think of is, a lot of people ask, okay, I can observe until my walking fades away and I don't really feel that I'm walking. Just keep walking. There are thoughts coming and I see things, but I don't get involved with any of these things. I don't identify myself with any of those things. Everything else is there, but I'm not affected by anything. Now the question is, what do I do next? A lot of people ask that. question, what do I do next? And it comes as a doubt. What is the doubt? Now all these things have happened. Doing something is again another view we have. Doing something is another view because we think that we have the control over of things. Therefore, we must do something all the time. So again, that gives an opportunity for the teacher to say, this is a stage where you can see more things. When you are not involved with any of those things, you can see a wider spectrum. So when you see the wider spectrum because you don't do anything. So therefore, if possible, stay without doing anything. So because of the question that arises from the wrong view is giving the practitioner as well as the teacher to clear on one hand the view and as a result the doubt itself. So he can practice and see without doing anything whether he's able to see this. So therefore these things are going hand in hand. And another example that I can think is some people are asking if you are practicing mindfulness when there is some painful feeling, some unpleasant feeling, is it okay to change the posture mindfully? Because mindfulness is getting maintained. Mindfulness is just to observe what is happening in this particular point in time. So that is a view that is being generated, developed from mindfulness itself. And that is again linked to the previous question I mentioned. What do I do next? In this case, he is not asking what do I do next. He has found an answer from mindfulness itself and is looking for the confirmation of what he's doing. In strict sense, if you take mindfulness, what you should do is, what the Blessed One says is, if there is unpleasant feeling, he's not asking you to change the posture, but of course we allow beginners to do it. But all three of you are not beginners. So therefore, Blessed One's advice is, if it is an unpleasant feeling, just observe the unpleasant feeling. That's all what we have got to do. So if we do that, our view regarding unpleasant feeling changes. And when the view changes, naturally, when you keep on observing, you yourself will have an opportunity to see whether what the teacher says is right. When you keep on observing, whether you get more information about the unpleasant feeling, whether you go to a different layer of your practice, or whether this unpleasant feeling stays forever for years, weeks, months, and years together, or whether it is giving some different scenarios of the very same thing. So what naturally happens is when you keep on observing those things, they have the nature of changing. And because of the nature of changing, because of your increasing patience with the unpleasant feeling, your attitude towards this is changing. More you observe it, more patient you become, and your view gradually changes, and then your doubt is getting cleared. And similarly, when you have pleasant feeling, and when you have pleasant feeling, and the doubt is arising, so for some people in this manner, they say, when I practice, I go to a very blissful state, and in that blissful state, I'm staying for quite a long time. And is it really vipassana? Is it really insight, or am I stuck in concentration? Am I stuck in some other practice? So this is a question that a lot of people ask. Again, a doubt which is coming from the practice itself. It is because of the urgency, because of the craving for insight now. He's hating the concentration practice. He's hating the very own blissful state he's having. But that is again because of now his practice is developing so well. Our mind is trying to show that insight can be permanent and insight can be made yours. You can control insight, and this is why the question is coming: whether I am stuck in concentration. That is because whether I can do something to make it insight. And again, it's very subtle. And what the teacher says, so if you go to a blissful state, there is nothing wrong. And you have given up so much. So when you give up so much, now you see, more you give up, better the pleasurable feeling. And then when what the teacher says, when you go to those pleasurable feeling, important thing is being there for a long time is fine because you are so tired and you are taking a rest now. But remind yourself all the time you are in that blissful state. If you keep on reminding yourself that you are in the blissful state, instead of just going there and taking a nap, then you are not stuck. And that reminding itself is being mindful to that particular point in time. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, doesn't matter. Blessed One does not say that you will have to hate and chase away the pleasant situations, and you will have to always handle negativities or always handle unpleasant situations. No. So far as Blessed One is concerned, if you identify yourself either pleasant or unpleasant, then you are stuck. But if you know that you are there, maybe pleasant, unpleasant, then you are not stuck. You just keep observing. You are simply mindful. Therefore, it doesn't stop you in particular state. So like this, when your practice is developing, and if you feel that you want to get another opinion about it, and you go and talk to some other teacher, or you read some other book, then you spoil the whole soup again because of your inquisitiveness, and you keep changing the practice, or keep changing the teacher, or keep changing the information that you get. And of course, there will have different views, different practitioners, different type of teachers who may be taking mindfulness as the most important thing of the Buddha, or they may be taking something else that the Buddha has told as the main important thing. So you may receive an advice which does not go along with mindfulness. Then again, you will be pondering doubts. So when those doubts come, these doubts are serious. Those doubts are coming because you don't have the faith in the teacher. You don't have the faith in yourself that the practice is happening the way that the Buddha has told. So therefore, it is very important when you have doubts to talk about those doubts. So when you talk about those doubts, on one hand, you give the teacher an opportunity to clear them, clear your view or way of thinking, and therefore your view can be purified. And on the other hand, it can make you more and more faithful to the practice, more and more faithful for the Blessed One, more and more faithful for the teaching, more and more faithful for the teacher. So therefore, having doubts, if you ponder doubts, it becomes a hindrance in itself. But instead of pondering it, and when the doubt comes, because you are so mindful, you think this is also a thinking only, this is also a thought only. So he will simply observe that thought as well. Doubt is coming as a thought. So instead of considering that as a thought, doubt, he will observe that as just another thought. So when therefore that happens, you are gradually purifying your doubt as well. So everything what Buddha says is keep the mindfulness to the fore. So if the doubts keep coming, you take that also as an object and start becoming mindful. So when you become mindful for the very suspicion that you generate in your mind, it does not become an hindrance. It becomes an object of meditation. So when that happens, Blessed One says, you will understand that there is nothing that cannot be considered as an object in the practice. So when that happens, you have gone beyond your body, you have gone beyond your feelings, you have gone beyond your thinking. You generally allow anything, any phenomena that appears to appear and take that also as an object. So therefore, arising of suspicion, arising of doubt is not a mistake of the practitioner. It's the nature of our human mind. And you can know that only when you consider that as another thought which I can be mindful of. So when that happens, you gradually purify your own defilements without, when this happens, the teacher is not there, Buddha is not there, you have become your own teacher. So therefore, that is very important when this purification happens for the depreciation of the defilements. And are not used to, you will not have the habit of pondering doubts. And any doubt that lingers, you will just go through that. So you will understand when you come to this stage of the practice, how significant the listening and discussion supportive factor is important according to what the Blessed One has said. So the purification of perplexity is something very important because that contributes immensely towards the first stage of enlightenment. So when you don't have any doubt, not about Buddha now, not about the teaching, not about the community of monks, but you have no doubts in your own practice within you. You have developed your mindfulness to such an extent. Anything come my way, I will be simply mindful. And if it is not body, if it is not feeling, if it is not thinking, it will be just a phenomena. I will have to simply observe on it. So in that case, you have, to a great extent, contributed towards the purification of perplexity. And that contributes immensely to the stage of, to the first stage of enlightenment. You are not enlightened yet, but it immensely contributes because that allows you to further the practice and strengthen the path and then reach what the Blessed One has said. So we are coming to those stages in the future, and those things are there in this particular discourse. So when all other teachings are talking about hell and the heaven, the Blessed One is is trying to show, yes, there is hell, yes, there is heaven, but there is something in between as well, without going into any of those things, which most of the other teaching have failed to show. And even there, the Blessed One is saying, there is no one that can help you. You are your own savior, and you can either dig your own grave or have your own ladder to go beyond anything else that is possible. So for that, there is a simple way. That is the way that we are discussing. And in that simple way, the most important thing is keeping the mindfulness to the fore. So this is why when we were worshipping, when we are worshipping, we say the community of Sangha is in the right path and is in the there are few verses we say, Blessed One's disciples have entered on the good way, entered on the straight way, entered on the right path, entered on the proper way. So all of you are in that way. So you are part of Sangha. So with that reminder, hope this talk has helped you to understand the nitty-gritty of what we are doing to the best of your ability. I have tried my best to explain these things. And with that, thanking you for listening, and blessings of the Noble Triple Gem to conclude the session. Everyone, Saranai.
여러분 잘
대로원 잘
Everyone, Saranai. Good. Hi, Zach.
Hello.
Any discussion point with anybody?
I always have a discussion point.
That's good. So it's very dull without you. These guys are not asking questions.
Okay, so shall I just go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yes, the talk that you just gave was remarkably appropriate for what I've been thinking of recently. And, you spoke of it being very important to mention when we do have doubts about the practice. And actually, I do have those doubts, and I want to mention them and then hear your response. So I suppose there's one thing that's ancient, and there's one thing that's very, very cutting edge modern. And the ancient thing is the yin yang, this balance symbol where you have, the black and the white, and the high and the low, and the big and the small. And the more you know, the less you understand, that kind of thing. This is a very ancient philosophy, which seems to me to describe reality as being perfect, seems to me. Then the modern thing is that, of course, in the last 40 years, it's been a lot easier to explore consciousness. There's a lot more people in the last 40 years who have, for example, been declared clinically dead and then have been brought back to life and have then reported consciousness continuing after the death of the physical body. So there's all kinds of cutting edge things going on there. So, one thing is very ancient, one thing is very modern. And those two things make me have the following doubts, for which there are two. So the first doubt that comes up is that, well, I'll start with the ancient source of doubts. So that makes me think, it seems that the philosophy of Buddhism is describing reality as having problems. And I'm thinking, that seems, I mean, I certainly experience reality that way. I live my life and I experience problems. But the philosophy that I'm closest to is the one that says, actually, all these problems, they're just in your mind. Actually, everything's perfect. That seems to fit better with me. So this is the ancient one. And then the modern one is that due to these cutting edge studies, we're able to get more and more information about ultimate reality, so to speak. And it seems that what is being uncovered is that actually, really karma might be something that we choose ourselves, and that actually it might not be necessary for us to reincarnate, simply that if we would die, then we really would have the choice to say, well, actually, I'd much prefer to stop reincarnating and I just want to stop existing, please.
Yes.
And apparently this is possible. And so those are my 2 points. This idea that Buddhism seems kind of miserable, actually, like kind of seems like a miserable philosophy to say what it's saying, what I've understood so far. And then also the doubt of some of the descriptions of reality don't seem to fit in with what I'm hearing from this cutting edge information. So those are my 2 comments.
Yes. Number one, the 2 comments or the 2 comparisons are based on the knowledge from the outside world. It is something that you have read, something that you have heard, and not directly from yourself. And or if I put it this way, whoever who has told those things, especially this cutting edge technology and cutting edge development we have, they have done those things with the third parties, with someone else outside. But whereas our experiment is within ourselves. Teaching is awareness of here, now, I am. So when it comes to awareness of here, now, I am, it is much more, how do I call, it is first-hand experience. So therefore your comment that the miserable, Buddhist teaching is miserable, is 100% something that you have experienced. Whether the Buddhist teaching is there or not, that misery exists. The only thing that happens when you practice the teaching is that you yourself have the ability to see it. So when you have the ability to see it, you very well brought up that you have the answer to that question. If it is miserable, are we going to continue to exist? Is there a way out? And you said, I want to stop karma. And that is exactly what we are doing. Karma means cause and effect relationship. You do something, there is a reaction. And that reaction will lead to another reaction. And like that, action becomes reaction, reaction becomes action. And it keeps on going, and that is what we call existence. So whenever we end the day, we never sleep with all done list and there is nothing for me to do. Every day when we wake up, there is something to be done. And that is how we die. And then there will be a bucket list to be filled even after death. That is how the continuation happens, to put in the most simplest way. that ordinary layman will understand. But the answer is, as you said, if you want to stop existence and that will exist suffering, this is the teaching. What you will have to simply do is stop action. To stop action, what do? You increase your observation. That is the awareness. And that observation is right here, right now, of yourself. When you do that, you don't look anything outside. You take the control of yourself and choose not to choose. And when you keep on practicing this, and if it really becomes a very prominent, very strong mental process, then you have the key to switch off at the time when the next existence call comes in. Hope it makes sense.
Seems very complicated, but thank you for your answer. Same.
But which part is complicated?
But it seems what you're telling me is that actually ultimate reality simply exists within inside of me. So if I get any information from the outside world, then this is not what the teaching is about. The teaching is about simply observing what's happening internally within myself.
Yes. So let me put it this way, since you are bringing outside into the equation. Anything outside is identified as outside only so long as it is connected to your internal faculty. There will have billions of things that have not come into contact with your internal faculties, which you don't know. So when that outside things comes to your internal faculties, then it is something that you have the control over, either to get entangled with it or just to observe and allow not to process whatever that has come your way. And that is how you can shut down. You hear something, you don't process it internally, you just observe that as hearing only. You see something, you just observe that as seeing only, you don't process over it. Similarly for taste, similarly for smell, similarly for contact, similarly for mind objects. So when you keep on practicing in that manner, things will get bombarded into your faculty, but you don't identify yourself with them. So when you don't identify yourself with them, it is still internal, it is still within. And you cut off the outside world in that manner. And by cutting off the outside world, what you simply reduce is the suffering, because all these things are giving suffering.
Yeah, certainly suffering is something that just seems so incredibly undeniable to exist. What I don't really understand is that we say, may I never follow the foolish. And I always think to myself, well, why not? What, sort of, but for me, I think it makes more sense to say, may I only follow the foolish when I'm supposed to.
Yeah, no, let me put it this way. When you say, may I not follow the foolish, what do you understand by it?
I understand that it's possible for me to make a mistake, and I can't understand that. I think
the meaning of
mistakes aren't possible.
Yeah. So the meaning of that is this. Now, from your comment, you said, yes, existence is suffering, right? So that's your understanding. And how many of us in the world are saying this?
Yeah, like really practically everybody, extremely small percentage are saying no.
Yes. And everybody else is saying existence is pleasurable.
Yeah, I suppose I have come into contact with people who say existence is wonderful.
Yeah. So they are the foolish.
So
in other words, they don't really, I mean, everybody has been in that boat, and we are not trying to undermine anybody or discriminate anybody. But there are some people who understand while living the normal life, there is some suffering that we simply can avoid. And is there a way? Are there people doing it? Can we do that? And there are some people asking those questions. They are not foolish because they have understood that there is some suffering, and because there is some suffering, we should find a way out. That's one side. There are some other people who say there is no suffering, and you have completely negative way of thinking. That is why you say this wonderful world, who, when we have our eyes intact, when we have our ears intact, when we have our nose intact, when we have our tongue and body and mind intact, why don't we enjoy this? And such people don't at least have the basic intellect to understand the reality. And they, from the point of view of the Buddha, they keep on existing for how many eons, nobody knows. And they are the foolish that is mentioned in that stanza.
the way I've understood it is that every single conscious being in existence has equal wisdom.
Has equal wisdom, I would say not has equal wisdom, has the potential to equal wisdom.
That's a big difference, I suppose. Yeah, everything has the potential for equal wisdom.
Yeah. But they don't make use of it. Any human being is having the ability to understand. But
so in Buddhism, they don't believe that all wisdom is equal.
all what?
All wisdom is equal.
Can you explain?
So every utterance possible has its equal value to others. So there's
it has equal value, right? But your value depends on your knowledge or your wisdom. For a doctor, of the latest finding is having a huge value. But for someone like you and me, we don't care. We just want to switch it off. We are finding a way not to continue this suffering existence. So we don't care whether there is.
For me, I'm not sure that's true for me. I'm not sure that it's really like I'm not sure I can see the value in stopping existence. Maybe I haven't understood something, but to me it seems like a better idea when I think about it, that I fully embrace and love and adore reality.
Yeah, so what is reality?
This.
Can you explain?
So whatever is,
Yeah.
what I'm experiencing.
Yeah. So the reality, according to the nature, is impermanence.
Yes, precisely.
And non-self. Because of the misunderstanding of these two, we have the suffering.
Yeah,
That is,
I think it's a really enlightening sentence that you said, that everybody has the potential for equal wisdom. I think that's something that I'm certainly going to ponder on due to this conversation.
yeah. I mean, as reality, we define reality in many different ways, but the reality is, in its strict sense, the nature. The nature is impermanent. There is nothing that has been permanent in this universe except the impermanence.
Hmm.
That is the only permanent thing. But from all what we do, we are trying to make this impermanent permanent and create a hell for ourselves.
Yeah.
So therefore, accepting impermanence, you completely change the way you think. And as soon as you do that, you just come out of suffering.
True.
You don't identify yourself with suffering. And that itself stops your existence, whether you like it or not.
True, yeah. It's almost like enlightenment's only possible in the moment.
Exactly. Every moment is a moment to be enlightened. But we just keep continuing.
Yeah, very good. So thank you for your answer, Bhante.
No problem. Thank you very much for the wonderful discussion. Everyone, Saranai. Any other contribution from the rest of the clan?
I just have a couple of
Joanne.
questions. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. There's someone has joined and you're not quite sure
Sorry. Yeah.
who he or she is. Just want to say hi to him or her.
Yeah, all good.
And if she can introduce herself or himself, would be great. Joanne? I'm sorry. This is Johan, I think.
Yes, Johan. It's Johan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's okay. Tanuka, you keep going.
Oh yeah, all good. Yeah. I just had a couple of questions. It's regarding the purification of the mind, and I was just wondering if there was such thing as a purification of the collective. So, like, instead of purifying your own mind, you is there any chance you could purify negative energies of a certain collective as well?
What do you mean by collective?
So say for an example, you post something on social media and you start receiving not necessarily negative comments or things like that, but you start you start feeling negative energies in that area.
Yeah.
And which can make you angry or upset or something.
Yes.
So next day when you purify that kind of anger, is there any chance you're not just purifying yourself, you're purifying something else as well?
Yeah. So in other words, let me understand the question. You're asking whether we can purify others' negative energies. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
In Buddhist teaching, what we can do is nobody can create negativity within you unless you do it yourself. So, I mean, everything else we interpret either positive or negative. We interpret as good or bad. So, when our mind is purified, we don't identify with whatever the comment that comes our way. Therefore, if that happens, our remote control is not with us, with somebody else.
Yeah.
So therefore, the Blessed One is teaching this technique of observation or non-reaction. And that teaches us to take the remote control to our hand. So we don't care whatever happens in the rest of the world, we simply observe. It is either something that we heard, either something that we have seen, or tasted, smelled, thought, and contacted. That's it. We don't take any further.
Yeah. Okay.
So that happens individually. When that happens individually, then such person will be able to emit the positive energies to the rest of the world, even without him or her knowledge.
Yeah. So you can never really purify someone else's way of thoughts.
We can, so long as we are not fueling that. Say, for example, there is a bad comment in the social media, and you don't post a comment to it. So when you don't post a comment, there is no another hand to get in touch with to have the clap sound. It's only one hand. There is no clap with one hand. So that way, it gradually subside.
Just one more question. Would you happen to know the difference between a Brahma and a God?
Brahma and a God.
Is there a way to like differentiate the two beings?
Yeah, I mean,
I was just curious.
Yeah, no, there are subtle differences, especially the Brahma world or higher Deva world. Those who practice go to such realms, and Devas are mainly from those who do good deeds. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you, also.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? Chatu?
Yeah, just a question about that Brahma world. Are they do they exist on, the 31 planes of existence? Do they exist on one of the 31 planes of existence?
Yes, it is mentioned in those planes.
Are they those are they non-returners, or they're a different something different?
Non-returners are above them.
Okay.
They are not in that category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they're on 7.
They're on 7. All right. Since there are no more questions, we can chant the stanzas and transform it and conclude the session. Over to you, Chatu.